There we go. All right. Good. Hi, everybody, and welcome today. My name is Wes Red. I'm the Northern Manager here at Ignite. So I'm spinning on you guys. And welcome. Thank you for supporting us and joining us for the Supporting Rural Entrepreneurship Series with Futurpreneur. We're excited today to be hearing from David Eisnor, the Business Development Manager with Futurpreneur Canada, and Matthew Doucette, co-founder of Xona Games, right? That pronounced? Xona. Perfect. We'd like to acknowledge that we're on the land known as Mi'kmaq, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The Mi'kmaq are the first people of this land and have been here in present-day Nova Scotia for more than 10,000 years. Today, Nova Scotia continues to be home to over 24,000 Aboriginals, including well over 13,000 Mi'kmaq. Pictou Landing First Nation is the Mi'kmaq community closest to us with a population of 470 members. And today, of course, is National Indigenous Peoples Day as well, a day that is meant to recognize and honor First Nations, Inuit, Métis cultures on the summer solstice. So happy first day of summer as well. A lot of events happening today. It doesn't feel like it here. I don't know what it's like in Yarmouth and other parts of the province, but it's a little cool, rainy here. We're happy to host some of you here. I think everybody here has been to the site before, and I think you all know Ignite very well. But for those who are unfamiliar with Ignite, we've got a great space here. Happy to tour you anytime, and also another great space in Yarmouth as well. And we're always happy for folks to come. Check out our spaces. You can always check out all the great programming we have on our website at igniteatlantic.com, and check out our social media feeds. We have a lot of events, even through the summer months. We have a lot of events, a lot of programs coming up. So it's a good place to stay in touch with what's going on. A lot of great youth camps. We're really excited. It's going to be a busy summer and even busier fall. I don't need to tell you where the washrooms or the light refreshments are. I think we figured that out, folks online. You're going to have to figure out where your own washrooms and light refreshments are. So right now, I'd like to introduce to you David Eisnor. David has over 20 years of experience. That's a lot for your young. Must have started young. Of experience in community economic development in supporting entrepreneurs and business startups. For the last 11 years, he has supported entrepreneurs as the business development team lead for Atlantic Canada and Futurpreneur Canada. He has demonstrated his passion for entrepreneurship by successfully running businesses in tourism, real estate, and agriculture. So please join me in welcoming David.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And my presentation for Matthew is not quite the same, because the point of today, and we're really here to learn a bit more about entrepreneurship, hear a bit of a story of an entrepreneur. And rather than me tell the story of Matthew, I'm going to let Matthew tell his own story of how he got involved in entrepreneurship. So I'll and I should say I've known Matthew for probably as long as I've been doing entrepreneurship work, in the 20 years, and probably more than 20 years now, I guess, that I've been doing this type of work. But I'll introduce Matthew Doucette from Xona Games. I'll let you tell a bit about your story and share some any stories you might have about getting started in entrepreneurship.
Okay. Yeah, Matthew Doucette of Xona Games. I think I'm not sure where to look. Should I look at you?
Look at me very
well. So I started when I was really young. So my brother and I won't get into the tech too much, but I have a twin brother. We started programming, coding computers when we were 7. Yeah, in grade 2 and 7, and we were trying to make video games then. These computers are simple. The games were very simple back then, Pac-Man clones, stuff like that. But anyway, we wanted to, that's what we wanted to do. We didn't know it was entrepreneurship then, right? It wasn't about money or business or livelihood. It wasn't about any of these things. We just wanted to do what we wanted to do. So that's really where it started. Fast forward through like all of school and all the stuff. Then eventually, I mean, really fast forward now, I'm out of school, out of college, university. You know, I actually did start some other companies, but I'll skip over those, like, because it really came back full circle back to the gaming industry. So the Xbox 360 opened up its platform for anyone, for indie developers, what we call indie developers or indie games. So you didn't have to sign some like, you know, $250,000 like kind of record label deal type thing. That's which was typical at the time, right? So you basically, with no contract, anyone had access to release a game onto a worldwide platform. That happened about 2008. 2010, it probably, I can't remember, you know, I might confuse a few years here. But we actually started working on the game in 2008. We released our first one in 2010. So yeah, that's a short summary of how it got started.
Yeah, go back, I'm curious, a couple things so would you say you said that Xbox, is Xbox owned by IBM? No, who owns it?
No, Microsoft.
Microsoft, okay. Would that be more open source then? Is that sort of the idea?
Yeah, I wouldn't say open source, but you're on the right page there.
Yeah, so, because I think, am I right in saying that when IBM versus Apple sort of had a bit of control over what they did, whereas IBM said everyone can come. I mean, this is a similar idea or no?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it is similar to that. It really is. See, so the Windows PC platform is open. Like it's, you know, for gamers, we know about the Steam platform, but I won't get into this, but it's like, but basically anybody can make a website, make a game down, put it for sale on their own website. Like and for a PC game, they can download it onto their PC, they can play. There's no restrictions whatsoever. You can't do that with the Xbox, maybe PlayStation.
Okay, interesting. So
they closed off platforms.
They wanted to support entrepreneurship. Do you think is why they did it, or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so. I think indie games were becoming bigger. It might. All right,
That's for a little sound.
Yeah. Okay, does that work?
It'll split. It'll. Well,
yeah.
there we
go. I think there was creativity in. Okay, indie games, to connect to this to entrepreneurship, indie games is like the startup company, right? The traditional games that everybody knows and plays, outside of that would be the big corporations.
Right.
So there's innovation and creativity and exploration and a lot of amazing things happening that large companies don't do, but small companies can take risks on.
Yeah.
So, and I believe just like entrepreneurship, there's a lot of failure. Maybe I don't want to even talk about percentages, but let's just say I use the number 1 in 10, which is probably way worse than this. But the idea is like most attempts are not successful, but because 10 people try or 10 indie studios try, you get that one gem that comes out.
Okay.
That a larger company may not even want to try. So I think that's the connection I would make.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. That it really Xbox or Microsoft and they call the division Xbox actually. Yeah. They did open that up for that. That's what I think. I mean, I don't know their thinking.
Of course, no, but I mean, I suppose, they're opening up for that, but also the more users it's a marketing tool, I'm sure. It's a couple assets too. Yeah,
they're capturing something that was happening already.
Yeah.
Not on their platform.
Yeah.
And some of the bigger ones were landing these bigger deals. And when I said $250,000, I'm not sure how big these deals are, but they're big enough that a brand new startup really doesn't have the capital or it's not even that they have the money. It's just that to get someone so big to interested, it's hard to make that connection.
Yeah.
So what they did, they just said, okay, the platform, the doors are open.
Yeah.
You can make a game, release it, and it gets released. There's no one in between that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a little bit of community. There's a few rules, like if the game crashes, like it gets rejected, stuff like this. But there's a very few
quality
rules.
control,
but only minimal, right? Very minimal. So they let the experimentation take place.
Okay. Yeah.
It's really cool.
How many games did you sell through that platform then?
We sold 3.
Okay.
And the first one there was this the i3. Do you know the Nova Corp i3?
Is that
yeah, it's a competition.
No.
Okay.
I'm not the game guy. I don't know.
No, it's not games. It's actually entrepreneurship.
Oh, okay. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Sorry. I do. I thought you were telling me about like a Pan game. Oh, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Nova Corp i3
Yeah.
technology startup competition.
Yeah. I know that.
We were in the midst of that. This might be an interesting story. So we're trying to win this competition, and we got down to the final 3. So Xona Games and 2 others. In the top 2, you get money. Basically, you win some. The third person does not. Third company does not. But still, we're in the top 3. And our story at that point, this is a 6-month competition. Our story at that point was, who are we? We're Xona Games. What do? We make games. What have we done? We're halfway through making our first game. Like that was our story at that point.
Right.
So we thought by the end of the competition, what we should be is who are we? Xona Games. What do we do? Make games. What have you done? We've released one. We've made and released one game. We're halfway through the second. We thought, so just try to get a release done just to show that we can do this.
Yeah.
And think of, if you're judging a business, if I can show you that I can take it to market, that's what
Oh, yeah.
that's what we wanted to do.
Mhm.
So in 5 weeks, we made a game, 5 weeks, and made and released a game on that platform.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then when it released, this was about, I might have the days off. I think we submitted on a Wednesday and it probably actually released on a Friday.
Okay.
That Friday was the end of the competition.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we actually had the pitch.
Yeah.
And when we gave the final pitch, we were talking about, we released one game. But the game did well. It ended up being #1 in sales and #1 in rating in Japan on the system.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't just some joke.
Yeah.
So, and then I remember I wanted to make sure everyone heard about that because we wanted to win the competition.
Yeah.
So I remember just trying to make sure that the news got back that that's how well the game did in the
Yeah.
following weeks.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did win the
You
competition.
got first place, or?
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
we got first place.
Yeah.
So that was us, like how I was saying, we were just kids wanting to make games. This was our first thing where we were trying to do a business.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a hobby anymore. So us winning that competition actually was something we were proud of because it wasn't something we were supposed to be able to do.
Yeah.
Like we were supposed to be able to make games and make good games because that's what we do, kind of thing. But to do something, so I found that was really a highlight of our success.
And how long after you started your business did that happen? Like, what's the timeline in it?
Oh, so we incorporated the business after we won that money.
Oh, so that was sort of, that is part of the launch of the business.
Yeah. I remember Google only incorporated after Yahoo or someone gave them $100,000.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but yeah. So we were joking that, Xona Games the same way. Once we get the money, then we incorporate. But that's actually what happened.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we incorporated April Fool's 2010.
Oh, yeah.
And then we won the competition, like, I can't remember, it was like January, February. that
Oh, okay,
year.
yeah.
Just before. So that was really the official launch, even though we had been working, like again, 2008, 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
working on a game, even going to conferences, being Xona Games, but it wasn't an official thing yet.
Yeah.
So that was really a launching pad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then at that point, would you say the business was a part-time business, full-time business?
Oh, it's a full-time. We were doing full-time ever since 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long did the business run like that for?
You mean full-time?
Yeah.
Probably a few more years.
Yeah.
See, if we get into that, so there's only 2 of us, right? My
Yeah.
twin brother, Jason, and myself. And businesses go up and down and up and down,
Yeah.
right? So even though we had some amazing success, I can talk about the good and the bad.
Mhm.
What happened was we released 2 more games that year, 2010. This was around December, so January and in December anyway. So in total, we released 3 games all that year.
Yeah.
They all were #1 in Japan and all were #1 bestsellers in Japan
Yeah.
and in other countries too. But
Yeah.
so that is a sign of success for sure. But what happened shortly after, because there was this new Xbox sub-platform for indies that got hacked and all of our rankings were hacked.
Oh.
So basically our entire income in a matter of a day or two basically dropped, well, not to 0. Yeah, isn't that insane?
Oh,
So that was something like that nobody, like Microsoft or Xbox didn't change or do anything about.
Yeah.
They stopped the hacking from occurring,
Yeah.
but it was a bunch of fake votes. So what you can do, you can make a bunch of fake accounts, go vote your game the highest and vote all the top games down the
Oh,
lowest.
shoot.
And the script, whatever that was doing, this ran too much and just, I think we were down to the 250th game.
Oh, wow.
From 1.
Oh, shame.
Yeah. So that was, like, no one looks that deep into a catalog.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah.
so all of our, that was part of our, that was a big hit. That was a huge hit.
Yeah.
Because we felt like we had done our job, but the platform hadn't done its job.
Yeah.
So that's part of the risk, right? It was an experimental platform. That was part of the risk right there. So
Is that the only platform you sell on? Or?
at that time it was.
Okay.
Then we went to other ones. So our latest one was PlayStation 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's where Futurpreneur, like, this would have been about the time that we received the Futurpreneur loan to do the PlayStation 4 release.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop for a second because I realized I didn't put this out. So I'm asking questions, but if anyone online or, sorry, online's down there. If anyone's online or anyone who has questions, certainly you can jump in. And I don't know, Wade, if anyone has any questions that you wanted to jump in on right now, certainly, and if not, we can keep going.
Mhm.
Did you have to market your game to get to #1 in Japan? And did you know you were making a game for the Japanese market, or was that just?
Yeah, it's a really good question. In our business plan, I saw you might be asking me about business plan. On your sheet, but in our business plan, we predicted Japan would be the top place for our games, which is really interesting that we completely hit that. Like, I was surprised and not surprised. Like, surprised at our prediction, but obviously it was a prediction, so I'm surprised. Our games were very, from what we knew of the Japanese gaming market, their games were very skill oriented, very much about skill, and our games were very retro in nature. So by retro, all those old school retro games were all about the biggest score. How good are you at the game? That's what our games are like too. So we thought these would hit well, and they're also shoot 'em ups, which is just, shoot 'em ups just mean you're a spaceship, you're shooting at like aliens.
Okay.
Like, they got a picture, this is like, looks like 1980s arcade games is what our games look like. So nothing too, there's nothing too graphic, it's just little sprites. Anyway, so yeah, so when we released it, we didn't do too much marketing. The benefit of going to these big platforms is that there's very few games on them. When it's difficult to get onto a place, then there's not that much competitors on that place. So to compare trying to make a game on a phone, I think I don't know what the numbers are, but it'd be thousands of games being released every single day. Yeah, you know what I mean? It might be 3,000, might be 4, I don't even know what the numbers would be. So you could get, there was only in total on Xbox Live, where I went, there's only in total after the entire, like after Xbox 360 no longer does this anymore, there's only about 3,000 to 4,000 games
In total.
Yeah, which is still a lot. You still have to beat those other games out.
Right.
But so I think we were lucky. We should have marketed it, but we didn't. So we were just lucky, I think. We will not. The next game I release, we will have a publisher. We self-publish this one. I totally flipped on the idea that, oh, you can just do it all yourself. I think getting help is the best. It's the best thing. So we actually, we're trying to connect with, and we do have connections with publishers to help do this in the future. Okay. So basically they can help market it and publish it. And hopefully, and the key there is to find someone who understands your product. Because if they don't understand it, they're not going to be able to communicate it out.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
Matt, I was curious to know your learning process. You said you started when you were young, it's all self-taught. Was there any youth programs at that time that helped pave the road for you, or is it
there's nothing? Yeah, there's no YouTube or anything, so it was self-taught.
Yeah.
Coding, but one thing that's interesting that that youngsters don't have that we had back then was some of these games that we would play that we didn't code. They were in magazines, and they had the code in there. You had to type in the code. Or in the books, you wouldn't get the game to play, you'd have to type it in. So you're typing in the source code. So at first, let's just say there's a game that you had wrote and it says David Eisnor. I would just, being a kid, change it to Matthew Doucette. And it'd be kind of like my little hack that I need. See what I mean? Or change the graphic and see what I'm saying. Right? Yeah. So I found that to be, and the computer, when you would boot up this computer, it was a TI 994A for any Texas Instrument, for anybody who knows. But what you might know is a Commodore VIC-20 or Commodore 64. When you booted up those computers, it would just be ready for you to code. Right. It would boot right up into the basic programming language. And if you didn't, yeah, so it's basically just sitting there waiting to be coded. Now picture someone brand new, like just a youngster brand, like, what am I trying to say? Just someone new today, you boot up Windows, it's not asking you to code, it's asking you to use the internet. Yeah. Or go on whatever, like it's not create, it's more about consumption, where back in the day it was more about creativity. Right. So that's what, so even though we were self-taught and we could take credit for that, the system really, the whole, not just the computer system, the whole system of computers back then kind of lended itself to that. So
when you train people now starting on, does it go back to that kind of basics, or is it just so much more involved?
It's more evolved. You need complicated programs for the most part, you need to set it up on your computer for the most part just to get started. And then the expectations of your games are more complicated than, I remember one of the first game I ever made was called Treasure Hunt, and it was a Pac-Man clone. And it didn't have any enemies. It's just you, and you had to go and collect everything. I mean, there's expectations are a lot lower back then, right? So I could get away with making something that was potentially fun. I'm not even sure if it's fun, but, and it was slow because computers were really slow back then, but yeah, so now if a child is seeing, I'm just gonna pick on Halo or whatever the game might be. I mean, that's $100 million something budget game, 5 years, like all-star people from art to code to design. One person in grade 2 can't do that, right? So I feel bad. I kind of wish there was this, I wish there was technology that was focused on creativity more than consumer.
Would you say the opportunity that you had then, is there still an opportunity then for someone young getting into something at a different indie stage right now or no?
Oh, there is, yeah. So I'm not, yeah, to talk about the positive of it, the way I always think about it, I always felt like I missed the mark. So through my life, when I made a game and then on that computer is already deprecated, like people weren't using it. By the time I made this treasure hunt game, no one was using the computer anymore. And then by the time I did something, no one's using it. And I felt like that was my whole life. And then when the Super Nintendo came out, I don't know how many of you played that, but it was so much more advanced than what I had done. I always felt like I was a stage behind. But what I always thought was, no matter what, someone who's never made a game before, even coded today, there's someone out there that in 5 years will have made and released a game. And I already know the coding stuff, like why can't I? So I don't know if you find this with entrepreneurship or if any of you, like your confidence goes up and down. That's what I find. Like all of a sudden you feel like you can do everything and all of a sudden you feel like you can do nothing. This goes up and down. And so on the positive swing side, I just think, well, someone's going to be doing this. There's going to be some game that's going to be coming out 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And it won't be Halo. It'll be some indie game, like some simple, something with that's just interesting. So
yeah, and you say about the ups and downs. So I mean, my intro, I've got some experience with this as well. I have a partner though. So from, I guess you did as well, but it always seemed that my partners, it was on the high when I was on the low. So we sort of always did that. So it always worked. We never were on the low because we always had someone on the high game.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
People say the partnership is tough, which it is, but there's also some positives for sure.
For sure there is, yeah. And actually just being around, that's why just being at night here, it's like makes me want to move in.
Yeah, yeah.
Just being around other people, when you see other people succeed, even though it could be nothing to do with technology or games, it shows, oh yeah, you can just do things. You can just do things, right?
Yeah,
it's cool.
I want to switch now a bit to, I'm curious about, tell us a bit about what you're doing now as it relates to the business, but also how that whole, it fits into your life.
So now is not as exciting. So what's happened, and maybe I could rewind and talk about COVID.
Okay, yeah, of course, yeah.
So where we were left, because right now what I'm doing, I'm teaching video game development at NSCC. So they have a program called Game Development program, and I'm the kind of the faculty chair of that program. Anyway, so that's my full-time gig. So now Xona Games is more like a side. I don't know what you call it. Side hustle. Side hustle. Yeah. Side hustle. So, but what's cool about the program is that with me teaching, I get to learn about other technologies too. So we always coded our own game engines. I don't want to get too much into technology. We coded our games from scratch. Okay. And what we teach, anyway, there's game engines you can build a game upon that already have anyway, I won't go into that too much. Let me see, rewind.
Certainly go into it if you need to. I mean, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, I just think it's just new stuff you can learn. Yeah. I could use this Unity game engine to make a game, or I could use, there's different technologies you can use. So I'm learning these other technologies.
Okay, yeah.
And so, so basically the last years have been experimentation.
Yeah.
There are some, there's some of the stuff that we haven't actually released that we're working on. Yeah. But there are some ideas that some of our retro games, they're not really, but some of the games we've already released might be released on new platforms.
Okay, yeah.
But that's not locked in, so I don't want to promise that.
Right.
And then, and the other thing is going back to that whole hobby versus business, I'm really interested in making my next project not just be something that I wanted to do when I was a child, even though I want to be connected to it, but with the flavor of success built into it too. Yeah. So I think our games have been experimental. Yeah. We released experimental games on an experimental platform, and they did well, but then we also suffered from that platform not being quite solid, right? So can we take some of that stuff and bring it to the mainstream gamers? Like PlayStation 4 was another experiment, but That was a bigger thing. We were more lost on that, right? Our games weren't as big.
Yeah.
So we want to try to find our place. So we're right now in the midst of experimenting and building like tech demos. That's where we're at right now.
So creativity,
Prototyping.
creativity, innovation are huge, I guess, in
Yeah.
your industry.
Yeah. So we have, and one idea we have, I can share this, one thing, because of social media and all this other stuff, back in the day, you just make a game, not tell anybody, release it. And this is way before my time, but it'd be, oh, there's this game, right? Nowadays, what we want to do is actually try to make a game that we can share the process itself.
Oh,
So
yeah.
share the actual process itself. So then when we have the very first playable, share that out. Then you actually get feedback. It's almost like the minimally viable product, or like the running lean, like the running lean philosophy.
Yeah.
So really take that into account with the development of the game itself. So you're not releasing anything, but you're not actually releasing it for sale, I should say, but you are releasing your work. And after the next week or 2 weeks or a month, you release it. And even if it's a game that takes 3 months to get there, you can potentially throw it out in early access.
Yeah.
This is something that this is where our heads are
I'm
at.
picturing like the reality TV show of getting the game
Yeah,
done.
it's not so much streaming, even though people said that, it's more, but we could do that too.
Well, but the concept
Yeah.
of, you know,
Yeah.
by the end product, by the time you're there, you've already got a big following.
See, that takes my comments away, just thinking of that. 'Cause if I saw someone watching me code, I'd be like, can I code? Oh, man. Like, it's terrifying to have people's eyes on your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll check in with Wade. I know you're still, are there any questions in the chat before I keep going into, and any other questions in the room too?
We have no questions in the chat at this moment.
Okay, great. Thanks, Wade.
So what you're describing as far as releasing a game early and iterating the way through it, that's sort of a bit of a concept that's being applied in Web3, for instance, where you can actually kind of give early adopters a stake in the success of the product by a token in the case of crypto or Web3. Do you see any mechanism that you might use to incentivize early adopters to become champions of your product?
Oh, I see. Not in terms, it is very similar to that. In fact, web apps have it easy in that sense. They can release a minimally viable product, something that just does the base thing, and people can use it and start getting feedback and just roll with it. A video game, usually, this is the thing I want to change this. Usually you can't, the games we've done, we can't do that.
Because they're blocked to a platform.
Yeah, or even, not even necessarily that. Some platforms are open for updating, no problem. Like definitely the PC related platforms are, like Windows PC. So that's probably where we're going to go, just because it's more open for this iteration. But let's say you make a game, whatever game, it doesn't matter. And then I change something in it and put it out. Well, if you've already played through the whole story of the game, or you're going to play through, you see what I mean? It's like you can't do that with a book. But maybe authorship of a book would be a better analogy of what games used to be like. So if I give you the book and you read through it, but now I'm going to go change a character in the book and rewrite it and give it to you, you're going to read it again and read it again and read it again. But see, with an app that you use every single day, like I'm just thinking Facebook, it's an obvious one. You can just iterate this all you want. People are using it. So the game has to be something that you, I don't even know the terminology because I don't even know, but it's something that you would do every day. Not necessarily every day, but something you could do every day in the game. A great example would be Minecraft, for anyone who knows, like it's basically playing Legos. So they can update the game, add new land or new something in the game. And so when you come into your game again, it's just like someone dumping more Legos.
Sorry, it's non-linear.
Yeah,
Linear.
exactly. So this is what, and it's exploratory, and I actually love it. I don't know if you're going to ask me what my favorite game is. Minecraft would be one of the top games of all time for me. And one of the pieces of that is because it's creative.
Yeah.
With the person playing it, it does a land of all kinds of Legos on the floor do nothing without the creativity of the child playing with them. Yeah. And that's what I really love about Minecraft. But if I want to make a game that explores creativity and something that it's not just a story that ends. So something that when we go tweak it, do something, put it out, you are interested in playing with it again. So if we can do something like that, we can do that iterative process. Yeah.
How important is mentorship in the business?
Oh yeah, mentorship is very important because I think we would have probably, it's hard to say what it would be like without it. At first we had none.
Yeah.
And then we had some, and to varying degrees, right?
Yeah.
At some point we had a business mentor who had helped over 100 startup companies.
Oh, wow.
So this was probably our deepest mentorship. And with Sean Carver, if you are familiar with Sean Carver. Yeah. And so he was that was super, it was the biggest mentorship that we had. This was someone that we spoke to for a period of years. Right?
Yeah. Was that one you had done through Futurpreneur, or was that?
You know what? Sean was before Futurpreneur.
Okay,
so, yeah, was before, but yeah, so he was with First Phase and he's doing his own company now. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But, so he was cool because he's doing his own company and mentoring other startups, including us. And so mentorship was just like, when it's just myself and my twin brother, we're the kids who wanted to make video games, right?
Yeah.
We weren't the people who want to do a business.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest part for us.
Yeah.
So before him and NovaCorp, that whole contest, that came with mentorship, but I found just even the contest itself, like you only win the contest if your business is sound. It has nothing to do with whether you're doing what you love. I'm not ripping on doing what you love. I think that's what we all want to do.
Yeah.
But to do what you love and have it be a sound business too is the key.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So so I'm not really sure if I'm really even answering that other than to say that it's super helpful.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm curious about. And what about resources? I know you mentioned you mentioned us already. You mentioned the NovaCorp, but what other resources did you take advantage of that world?
Yes. So I'm trying to think. I mean, there's so many. So many.
Yeah.
So the big one, of course, in NovaCorp, that was a launching pad. Microsoft itself has lots of resources.
Yeah.
So most of the stuff's free, but at the time, at some point, some of that stuff wasn't free.
Yeah.
Even going to conferences, so NSBI, which is NovaCorp and COA, like I know they're all sort of connected, right?
Yeah.
But we've received help from all of these places.
Yeah.
And incubators. So when we needed an IP lawyer to who we got what am I trying to say, incorporated by, they couldn't really do the IP contracts that we were running into. So at an incubator, this was at the time it was Hub Halifax.
Okay.
Yeah. So and Volta Labs was another one, but I think it was Hub Halifax. We found someone else who ran the exact same problem as us.
Yeah.
Was using this lawyer, and and now Ignite it's so funny because Ignite is the one who is where I got my latest lawyer from.
Yeah.
So IP lawyer.
Yeah.
So just that connectivity, I find incubators if I could give one piece of advice, would be the incubators are one-stop shop for all of that.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Yeah.
Right. Including the mentorship, or just the connectivity to find the resource that you want. That's why I'm such a fan of incubators.
Yeah, oh yeah. And we have a number of them in the province. I don't know if everyone knows about the ones that are there for sure or not, but I think there's a question maybe. Oh, I love to hear, there's another question. Wade, want to jump in? Oh, or not?
No, okay, I'm here. The business component, this is from Jeannie. The business component is a difficult piece for most creatives starting out. Do you have any suggestions for how to get mentorship and training for a startup?
If I was asked that today, I'd tell them to go to Ignite. Oh yeah. I literally would say that because I would even want that person to not follow my advice. I'd want them to follow someone who's helping many different companies.
Yeah.
I don't know if my trials and tribulations really help someone. Someone can really look at your business and a lot of it, honestly, goal setting, having a goal. We released our first game because we needed to have that game out to win that contest. That was kind of a pretend goal for us.
Yeah.
But that's what made it happen.
Yeah.
So when we started making games, we didn't know we knew how to code. We didn't know how to do a product, how to hit first playable, the alpha, beta, final phases of the video game, all of these different things. I'm talking to you and us.
No.
But yeah, it's and then so having that structure was the biggest missing piece for us, I would say.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say too, another piece of advice is when you get incorporated, really consider the roles and responsibilities so that when something fails, whatever it happens to be, it should land on someone. It shouldn't be, my brother and I, we did a co-CEO type thing. That's probably a mistake. What we would have done better if we had redone it would have been, he would have been the CTO, Chief Technical Officer. So he's the one coding, the architect of the game, the deep coding architecture. And I would have been the CEO. I'm the one usually in these type of like speaking and, you know, all this stuff. Maybe more apt to be the one landing funding and talking to publishers. We're both though making the game, designing the game, but when you have co-CEOs, whose fault is it when something doesn't happen? Right. And then it's just we found that our very first game we had 6 different release dates and that game never released. So actually our first game never released. Oh wow. Yeah, and then it became this a Novacorp contest that really made us be like, and the mentorship with that is like, what do you do? We make games, so make games, right? Yeah. That's the idea. Like, don't just be making a game forever and never releasing it. So the real push was for us to get it out. Yeah. It's a connection to reality.
Yeah. I'm curious from the question, the person who put it, if you chat in a little follow-up on your question, in the creative world, are you talking from the artist side or a writer or I'm just more curious with like. Oh, okay. To expand on it a little further. Yeah, and it's you know, where geographically? Here. Oh, okay. So come to this space. This is where you're gonna come. There we go. I was trying to think, zero in to say where to go for sure, but yeah.
No, that's where my advice would be. Like, this is literally the why this exists. Yeah. And
there's one in your arm too.
And there's one in your arm.
Awesome. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of our chat, and then I'm going to talk a bit about Futurpreneur. But any last piece of advice that you wanted to share? An entrepreneur were coming to you and said, one piece of advice you want to share with me, then something that could help me point me in the right direction of success.
Oh my goodness. So I think we're hitting that. It's really mentorship, honestly. Finding someone, if you could find, it's not a, so are you talking about business creation or just any?
Well, it's for the focus of business. Yeah.
So, because even if it would still be the same idea, even if it was someone who's trying to get a job, let's picture someone trying to get a job at Ubisoft. Yeah. Connect with someone who works at Ubisoft. It's done before, right? Yeah. So it's the same idea. If you want to start your own business, connect with someone. Yeah. I find writing, there's certain connections, right? I find authorship of a book to be very similar to software authorship. Okay. So you could actually, it doesn't have to be someone who just wrote a book, because you still have to deal with like publishers and distributors and all this stuff. Okay, yeah. So, and marketing, how's your book going to be noticed? So I find you don't have to find the exact match to you. Just find someone that's done something similar in any way, right? Yeah. Mentorship, and then these incubators are great. I'm a super supporter, as you all probably know. These incubators. Awesome. And I'm going to add to that, and also the network. I mean, anyone here, we're all networking now by being here, whether we're here virtually or whether here. I think just sort of use your network as well. Yeah, networking totally. Yeah, that's actually interesting. Could I talk about that for a second? Yeah. So one thing that we did, even though we were like grew up in Yarmouth, there was nobody around us that did what we did. There's no real even software development, let alone game development. But what we did was, this is funny because someone was just asking me this the last time I was speaking. And I forgot to mention, we went to the conferences. So we went to GDC, that's in San Francisco. We went to PAX East in Boston. Yeah. These are some of the biggest like places to meet everybody, to meet not just publishers, but other indie developers and ask them how they're doing. Yeah. I would just go and hang out with everybody that was like me. Yeah. And just hang out with them for the whole week or the whole weekend. Yeah. And it costs money though to do this in time. Yeah. So it does, but I don't think we would have had, I don't even know. It's hard to say, honestly, if we hadn't done those things, if we would have had the success that we had. Yeah. Would you put those under professional development? Where would you, in your mind, are they marketing? What would you call those? I just, it's honestly just, it's networking, I guess. Yeah. But it leads to everything. Yeah. So show up is really the thing. Show up. Yeah. An email, if I'm trying, I remember I wanted to get on PlayStation 4 and I went to a conference just to meet 2 people. Yeah. One was the person who, the technology I needed to use to get my Xbox game on PlayStation. Think about that, it's an Xbox code. How do you get that running on PlayStation, which it doesn't support? Someone
I'm
wrote.
not a gamer, so that doesn't make sense.
Okay, yeah, you just can't plug a Xbox into a PlayStation.
Okay, yeah,
You know
yeah.
this, right? So it doesn't work like that, or Macintosh or PC.
Okay, that,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay, yeah, right. So, because it's different computers, different code.
Yeah,
So this guy, so I wanted to do that. A guy wrote code to help make this happen. I went to meet him. Right, so I went and met him and hired him to take my code using he's the guy who invented the technology to do it. So that was very direct. It wasn't just kind of like fluffy, like in the air. I directly went after that. The next one was someone who worked at Sony. At the time, PlayStation 4 was the console. And went to listen to his talk, and his talk wasn't even what I was interested in. I wanted to meet him because he was the person I needed to meet to get on the platform.
yeah,
Waited in a long lineup of people trying to talk to him after his talk was done, and eventually talked to him for like 10 minutes.
yeah.
So I went across the world, not across the world, across the country.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
For a 5 to 10 minute talk and a 5-10 minute talk.
Wow.
And that was more powerful than an email. And then I stayed, and then the relationship was formed, and then I could do email after that.
Yeah. Awesome. That's
See what I
great
mean?
learning, I think.
Yeah, so that's how I did it. I think this.
And I realized a question I didn't ask you that I meant, and that was one of the, in my opinion, one of the most important things to ask. So you started your business in rural Nova Scotia.
Yes.
You know, and you're now talking about the fact that you had to leave rural to make connections. This is important. I mean,
Yeah.
the reality, but maybe share just a bit more about what it was like to start the business in a rural.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point,
Yeah.
right? And that's why if I was already living in Seattle or San Francisco, going to these conferences would be nothing.
Yeah.
I'd just go to them. It wouldn't be some big deal, right?
Yeah.
Or in Boston or wherever else, right?
Yeah.
And now, anyway, I was going to start talking about game, but it's fine. There's there's a few mini conferences starting up now for games, or anyone interested in game development. But starting in rural, just because I started in rural because that's where I lived.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't a choice, but it's easier in the sense that it was easier on money than living in the city. Like, there's definitely things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't have much to say there other than that. That's just where I grew up.
But what about would you say there's downfalls for you that you saw?
Yeah, indeed. So Yarmouth to Halifax, for example. Halifax is where the Hub Halifax, Volta Labs, all these global there's game jam, the events that I was a part of were all happening in Halifax.
Yeah.
So going to Halifax and coming back is a whole day for me. Right. So sometimes it's 2 days, depending on when the event is.
Yeah.
And having to get a hotel and all this stuff.
From then till now, then,
Yeah.
do you find it different now? I'm just thinking with COVID changed a lot.
Yeah, with COVID, a lot of stuff is online.
Yeah.
So, but the connection is not as strong as showing up in real life.
Yeah, yeah.
You show up in real life. It's still people we know each other because we've met each other in real life. It's way more powerful than
That's a good takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think make sure to show up in real life whenever you can.
Yeah.
But of course, you and I could email no problem because we know each other, right?
Yeah.
So there's none of this, but I don't know if any of you ever worked at a company where you've only ever known someone through email. You just don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to, right? Now trying to get it published and getting all kinds of emails from everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Show up with your work. Here's what we're doing. Here's what's cool about our game. Here's awards that we've won. I find once you win an award, you can use that to win other awards.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There must be someone that's win.
Yeah.
I'm just joking, but there's something. There's
Yeah,
true.
no,
You can build on.
yeah.
You can build on the momentum. But awards by themselves are not what it's about. You have to do something with that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we did.
Yeah. Any last questions before the other part of what today, as I should have said at the very beginning, I want to share a short presentation on Futurpreneur. That's where I work and also the support that we offer to entrepreneurs. But any last questions for Matthew before we call this part? And we're going to have some networking afterwards as well. So we'll have a chance to have some one-on-one conversations. Those of you in the room, not in the room, certainly reach out by email. My email will be in the presentation when we go towards the end, so certainly reach out that way too.
Feel free to share my email there too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, actually, we can maybe type it in the chat, sort of, and then everyone has access to it, or if.
I can send you a
Perfect. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you so much for joining in the conversation. I love hearing the story. There's things that I learned today that I hadn't known. I don't know much about the gaming world. It's not my world, but I'd love to see a little more on the inside of it. So thanks very much for sharing the stories and being here today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, so I won't take more than 10 minutes. I always said, you're here to see Matthew. I feel the need of sharing some of this information. I'll run through some slides fairly quickly just so that
talk a bit more about what I do on a regular basis and the support that we can offer to entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur on the line, don't log off yet because we got some other stuff for you. So we'll wait just 1 second while we work through the technical piece of getting this presentation up.
Can you let me share my screen?
And if we can't do that, that's okay, because I can do it with I can just share a few words about it. It's certainly fine, yeah.
I don't know if we just.
He stepped
I
away.
am, but I'm not sure how to let him share. How do I do that?
The panelists, or yeah, the panelists and participants. I wonder if I can.
And what I'll do, maybe while you're working through the technical piece, if long as everyone can hear me chat, I'll just chat a bit about our program. If the slides never make it up, that's no problem at all. I know what's on them. So we've been around for about 25 years and supporting entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 and 39. And that's the core of what we do, is providing financing and mentorship support. So it's a program. Oh, I see what I'm gonna get. Oh, you got it.
It won't be shared.
So the people online won't see it?
They won't be able to see it.
Okay, so if you're tuning in online, we will email you a PDF version of this afterwards, so you have all the information, so you get the best of both worlds. I apologize for anyone coming in online that you aren't able to see what we're talking about right now. So actually flip through to the next. So the important thing I think that Futurpreneur does, that a lot of there's many organizations that do similar work, I guess, but a lot of times you hear, oh, we're an organization that supports innovation, or we support high tech. That's all we do. Well, we support the every entrepreneur. So we always say we support the Main Street entrepreneur. So on the screen, I've got a couple of examples of some of the types of entrepreneurs that we can support, but it's your Main Street businesses, typically, maybe your restaurants, your storefronts, your retail, business services, personal services, a little bit of everything. We can support innovation as well. We supported Matthew in his game. So we can support that type of business as well, but it's not the core of what we do. Jump into the next. And I'll touch on these points, I think probably most, and then that'll be the most of what I want to touch on as far as Futurpreneur. But we've got 4 core programs. Our startup programs for entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 and 39. It's up to $16,000. I say that 18 to 39 a lot. If you're outside that, I apologize, but there's lots of other great supports for you as well. But the core program is up to $60,000 in partnership with the Business Development Bank of Canada. And it's a loan where our funding is $20,000 and it's $40,000 BDC. And then together you can access the full amount. And the most important part of each of these four programs up there is that you get matched with a volunteer mentor for 2 years. So we touched on mentorship in the chat, and mentorship is important. And we want to make sure that every entrepreneur has a higher likelihood of success. And that happens when you're matched with a mentor. The side hustle program is the next program I'll touch on. And it's for an entrepreneur who's passionate about something, but they're working full time and they don't necessarily want to leave that full-time job security of a paycheck, and they still want to do something. And another example, now he's a side hustle entrepreneur. He sort of blends into the full-time into his side hustle. So that's another way we can support an entrepreneur. And the last 2 programs I'll touch on is the Indigenous Entrepreneur Starter Program. And that program is special because you can work with a team member with lived experience. So an entrepreneur who is Indigenous that wants to start a business can work with a team member in my organization. Right now, the individual with me, Jason McDonald, he lives in Ottawa. He's coming to Nova Scotia in the next couple of weeks, so he could take you through our entire process. And then the next program is the Black Entrepreneur Starter Program that we launched just a little over a year ago. And again, you get to work with a team member with lived experience. So each of those 2 programs have that. As well as we recognize that if you're a Black entrepreneur and you may have had some systemic barriers that you faced in your life, if you have some challenges with credit, we have the ability to still continue to support you, and we have some credit education pieces with that as well. So some other great aspects of those 2 programs that come along with it. And I think that's probably all I'll touch on as far as the slide, just because everyone that logged in for Jason, logged in for Matthew, not for me. So that is the important part of the story. Sorry.
No, it's funny. So my twin is where we got Jason from.
Yeah. So my contact information is there. We'll email it out to everyone afterwards. And for those in the room, we're going to stay and have a little bit of networking. I don't know if there's any last questions, Wade, that you want to jump in on that may have come up, but
We have a couple of comments. First off, Jean, who had asked a previous question, said, "It's nice to hear that someone from rural Nova Scotia made a success in the gaming world. My son worked in it for over 20 years, but he started in Vancouver, then to San Francisco and San Jose. It was a long journey and not on his own." And it was interesting to hear what both of you have to say.
Great, thanks for the feedback. Awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, well, I think that wraps up for today. Those who are in the room, certainly stick around and do some networking, and for those online, thanks very much for logging in, and we'll hope to see you again at another event. That's it.